Don't wait up for me." My sister had said the night before, tossing her sleek platinum suitcase into the trunk of the car without glancing in my direction. "They're just assigning rooms based on who matters." I'd laughed it off, assuming she was being her usual passive-aggressive self. But as I stood in the hotel lobby, now fingers frozen around the chipped ceramic handle of the mug I'd just been handed, her words echoed like a warning I had been too proud to heed. The front desk clerk looked up from the monitor with an apologetic smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Walker, I apologize, but I cannot find your reservation." My fingers went slack. The mug slipped from my hand and shattered against the marble floor. The sound ricocheted through the sleek air-conditioned lobby. Heads turned. My face burned. Behind me, heels clicked purposefully. Too familiar. "I only made reservations for our real family," my sister Jordan said, her voice bright with artificial cheer. The kind that stabs between the ribs. Didn't want to confuse the staff with any extra names. She didn't look at me. Just smiled at the clerk, then brushed past her designer perfume, hanging behind her like a slap. I watched the way my parents moved deliberately slow, like choreographed dancers in a tragedy I hadn't realized I was starring in. My mother tilted her head away. My father pulled out his wallet to tip the bellhop as if nothing had happened. No one looked me in the eye. I was 29 years old. I'd paid for my own flight, requested time off work 6 weeks in advance, bought gifts for my niece and nephew, and yet as I stood surrounded by my own flesh and blood, I was invisible. Correction worse than invisible. I was excluded. Deliberately, surgically. The clerk cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Would you like me to check again?" Maybe under a different name, I almost said yes. Almost scrambled to explain, to rationalize. Maybe it was a mistake. A system glitch. Maybe Jordan hadn't meant no. My eyes flicked toward her as she took a selfie in front of the resort's glass sculpture centerpiece, grinning wide-angling so I wasn't in frame. She laughed with her husband, and my mother joined in, adjusting Jordan's scarf like she was adjusting a crown. That wasn't an oversight. That was a decision. "I guess I'll figure something out," I murmured, already turning away before the clerk could respond. My voice caught in my throat, but I refused to let it crack. Not in front of them. Outside, the sea breeze slapped me harder than any of their words. I found a low stone bench by the valet stand and sat staring out past the palm-lined entryway. The sun was warm. The air smelled like coconut sunscreen and someone else's happiness. I took one long breath, then another. I could have cried, could have demanded an explanation, caused a scene. But they wanted that. They wanted to prove that I was unstable, difficult, too much, too. So I said nothing. Instead, I stared down at my phone, opened the booking app, found the most expensive suite in the same resort, and booked it for the next 3 nights. Under my full name, Vanessa Elaine Walker. Not the extra, not the burden, not the outsider. I didn't storm in and announce it. I didn't ask for a key from the same front desk that had just denied me. I walked around the side entrance and waited until I received the check-in confirmation. Then, without a word, I entered the private elevator to the top floor. The suite smelled like bergamot and new beginnings. Glass walls opened to a full ocean view, marble counters, a soaking tub, and a bottle of champagne on ice greeted me like old friends. I didn't drink it. Not yet. Instead, I stared at my reflection in the gold-framed mirror above the wet bar, the red in my eyes, the cracked shell of pride holding everything else in. I whispered one sentence to the quiet, "They want to erase me, but they're about to regret it." And in that silence, I could hear it, the sound of justice, faint but rising. Not loud, not yet, but steady and mine. I used to believe that being quiet made me safe. Growing up, Jordan was the son, the favored daughter, blonde, outgoing, born with the kind of smile that made adults hand her things. Meanwhile, I was the one with crooked teeth, too many questions, and a notebook always half filled with things no one else bothered to remember. Our mother used to say Jordan is the kind of girl who walks into a room and changes it. And then she'd look at me. "Vanessa, honey, You're more of a thinker. That was code. Code for dull, for inconvenient, for ignorable. I remember the first time I felt truly invisible. I was 9. There was a school play, The Secret Garden. I'd landed the lead role of Mary Lennox. I was so proud. I'd stayed after school to rehearse, even asked Dad to help me memorize lines. The night of the performance, I scanned the rows of folding chairs. Empty seat, empty seat. Then Jordan entered in a sparkly dance costume. She'd been in a jazz recital across town, apparently. My parents never came to the play. I still remember standing in the hallway afterward, gripping the plastic rose prop in my hand. A janitor walked by and said, "You were great, kiddo." I smiled like it meant something. It did, because no one else had said it. After that, I stopped asking them to come. I stopped showing them report cards too, even when I got straight A's. Jordan would bring home a B+ and get pizza and a cake. I graduated with honors. No card, not even a good job. They weren't cruel. That's the part that makes it worse. They were just selective. Selective in who they saw, who they believed in, who they claimed as their own. Once when I was 15, Mom picked me up late from debate club. I got into the car drenched from the rain, still wearing my blazer. She looked over and said, "Are you sure you're not overcommitting, Vanessa? Not everything is meant for everyone." I stared out the window. She didn't notice the tear on my cheek, or pretended not to. Years later, that same phrase echoed again when I told them I got into NYU on partial scholarship for journalism. New York Dad said, laughing, "That city's gonna eat you alive, Nessa." Jordan chimed in with a smirk. Vanessa can barely handle a full conversation at dinner. She wants to be a journalist. Everyone laughed. I laughed too. It was easier than crying. But I went. I got in. I scraped by with odd jobs and financial aid and one faithful professor who said, "Your writing makes people feel seen." Still at home, I remained the background character, the extra place at the table, the one they always seemed surprised to remember. It wasn't just me. Even when I got published in a regional magazine and op-ed about mental health and media, no one said a word. I'd emailed the link to our family group chat. Jordan left it on read. Mom posted a picture of her garden 2 minutes later. Dad replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I spent years wondering if maybe I was the one who was broken. Maybe I was forgettable. But then something shifted. 2 years ago, I started freelancing for a startup that specialized in long-form digital reporting. Anonymous at first, ghost-written pieces, then editorials under a pseudonym, and then slowly under my own name. People read my words. They responded. Strangers. Not my family, but strangers. And maybe that was the real turning point, realizing that love, recognition, respect, they didn't always come from where you thought they would. Sometimes the people you needed most simply didn't have what you needed to give. And I stopped begging them for it. Stopped waiting for them to remember my birthday without a Facebook notification. Stopped hoping they'd ask, "How's your writing going, Nessa?" Because they never would. And yet I kept writing, kept surviving, kept showing up, even when they didn't. Even now, on this ridiculous, overpriced family trip, I'd shown up. I thought maybe this year would be different, that after my latest piece had gone viral, 1.3 million reads, they'd see me. They hadn't. They never booked me a room. The welcome dinner was set on the terrace overlooking the beach strings of lights overhead, white linen tables, and a violinist playing a soft rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. The kind of ambiance that screamed curated perfection. I almost didn't go. I sat in my suite for over an hour staring at my reflection, wondering if showing up was masochism or strength. But a small part of me, the part they hadn't crushed, needed to be seen. Not by them, by myself. I wore a deep green wrap dress. It was elegant, understated, the kind of dress that hugged the body without shouting for attention. I curled my hair loosely and slipped into simple nude heels. I didn't look like the girl they ignored. I looked like the woman they never saw coming. As I descended to the terrace, I scanned the crowd. There they were, my parents at the head of the table, laughing with a man I assumed was the resort coordinator. Jordan sitting pretty in a white halter dress sipping a mojito holding court like a minor royal. She saw me first. Her face froze for half a second before twisting into an almost convincing smile. Vanessa? Oh, you made it. I stepped forward slowly. Of course I made it. It's a family vacation. The air shifted. A few heads turned. My mother blinked twice like I was an apparition. My father raised his glass but didn't say a word. The coordinator gestured awkwardly toward the table. Unfortunately, I only have 16 seats accounted for. Jordan interrupted, waving a manicured hand. Oh, don't worry. Vanessa wasn't part of the original RSVP. We didn't expect her to make it. The implication was clear. I stood there, surrounded by my own relatives, cousins, in-laws, even my father's golf buddy Greg, and realized every single seat had a name card, except one. Mine. The violinist played on, soft, oblivious. I'm happy to stand, I said quietly. Just here to say hi anyway. Jordan pouted. That's so dramatic, Nessa. We didn't mean to exclude you, it's just we had a limited head count. And yet you brought Greg, I muttered. Greg waved with a mouthful of shrimp cocktail. Mom chimed in. Sweetheart, if you told us you were definitely coming, we could have. I did, I said. She blinked. I sent 3 emails, even texted the group chat. No one responded. Jordan tilted her head, mocking sympathy. You know how group chats are. Things get lost. I smiled. Tight. Measured. My eyes stung, but I would not give them the satisfaction. Instead, I turned to the coordinator. It's fine. I'll eat upstairs. I'm in the penthouse suite. He blinked. The Coral Bay Presidential, yes. Jordan choked on her drink. You're staying in the Coral Bay suite. My mother's fork clinked against her plate. I needed my own space, I said, tone casual. Didn't want to make anyone uncomfortable. The words hung between us, barbed wire wrapped in politeness. I turned to leave, and then from behind me I heard a whisper, low, not meant for my ears. She just can't stand being left out, Jordan said, always playing the victim. The sentence sliced through the air. I stopped walking, my back still to them. The waves crashing below suddenly louder in my ears, my hands clenched, and then I laughed. A quiet, breathy laugh that caught even me off guard. I turned back. Looked at the whole table. You're right, I said calmly. I hate being left out, especially by people who pretend I was never in to begin with. Then I walked away. Not fast, not flustered, just done. I didn't cry that night. I ate alone on the balcony of my suite, watching the moonlight ripple over the ocean. And somewhere between the grilled sea bass and the key lime pie I'd ordered for one, I made a decision. They wanted to erase me. Fine. I'd make damn sure the world remembered me without them. I didn't go to the beach the next day, didn't join the morning yoga session Jordan had arranged, or the overpriced dolphin boat ride Mom posted about on Facebook like it was some kind of spiritual awakening. Instead, I stayed in. I ordered black coffee, plain oatmeal, and fresh berries, ate alone in the silence of my suite, with the ocean glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows. The room was quiet except for the distant cry of gulls and the hum of the mini-fridge. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. There's something strange about grief when no one's died. You mourn things that never existed, the family you imagined you had, the conversations you rehearsed but never got to say. I laid on the chaise by the window and stared at the ceiling, letting the truth sink in. They didn't forget me. They erased me. Piece by piece, year by year, until even I started to question if I ever belonged in the first place. The most painful betrayals aren't the loud ones. They're the slow disintegrations the birthdays missed with soft excuses, the seats unreserved by accident, the photos where you were cropped out and nobody mentioned it. That morning I turned off my phone, not just silenced off, no more checking for texts that never came, no more scrolling through photos of my sister laughing in matching swimsuits with cousins who never replied to my messages. I didn't owe them my attention. Instead, I opened my laptop, the one I always carried but rarely used on vacations, and I pulled up a draft, a half-finished story I'd been afraid to finish, a piece about family erasure, generational silence, the quiet violence of being the unwanted daughter. It wasn't meant to be personal, but now it couldn't be anything else. I wrote for hours. The words spilled like confession. Not just facts, but feelings, images. The time Jordan gave a toast at Grandma's memorial and never mentioned me. The way Dad always introduced me at gatherings as our other daughter, she writes, I think. I wrote about the pain of being remembered only when convenient, of being the emotional mule carrying secrets, absorbing tension, smoothing things over so they could keep playing happy family. At some point, I started crying. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears that slid down without asking permission. It was the kind of cry that leaves you hollow and clean. And when it was done, I saved the file under a name I'd never used before. Inheritance, the price of being forgotten. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called Dana. Dana was my old college roommate, a firecracker of a woman with wild curls and a PhD in media analysis. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe a year. She answered on the third ring, Vanessa. Her voice sounded like home, like before. I didn't mean to cry again, but the tears came anyway. "Oh, honey," she whispered, "tell me where you are." That night, I packed my bag. I left the suite, the untouched champagne, the empty bed, the balcony where I'd watched the moonlight with hollow pride. I didn't leave a note, didn't slam a door, just walked away. The valet raised an eyebrow as he handed me my keys. "Leaving early, Miss Walker." "Yes," I said, early enough. The drive inland was quiet. I stopped once for gas and a terrible chicken wrap, but mostly I just drove windows down here, whipping the salt air slowly replaced by pine and heat and the long, flat roads of the Georgia interior. Dana's house was small and chaotic. Overgrown garden wind chimes on every corner, books stacked like walls in the living room. She hugged me like she'd been waiting all along. "I have wine and leftover pad thai," she said, "and you're staying as long as you want." I didn't respond, just cried into her shoulder for the third time that day. And in that tiny living room with mismatched throw pillows and a cat named Anxious climbing over my duffel, I finally let go of the lie I'd carried too long that I could earn their love if I just tried hard enough. Dana had a spare room, but the bed was buried in boxes of books and old art supplies. So I slept on the couch, a lumpy thing with a patchwork blanket and a spring that jabbed me in the back whenever I shifted wrong. And still, I slept better than I had in weeks. Something about the mess, the clutter, the scent of sandalwood and cheap candle wax, it all felt safe. No one was watching. No one was judging. The morning after I arrived, Dana left a cup of ginger tea by the window and disappeared into her home office for a Zoom lecture. I sat by the windowsill, tea in hand, watching the neighborhood wake up. There were children biking past with tangled hair and mismatched shoes. An old man walked his dachshund in a yellow raincoat, even though the sun was high and dry. For the first time in ages, I felt something like stillness. Later that afternoon, I opened my laptop again. The document from the suite was still there waiting. I reread it, heart racing, unsure if I'd gone too far or not far enough. That's when I had an idea. I wasn't ready to publish the piece in my name, not yet. But I remembered a platform Dana once mentioned, a digital magazine with anonymous contributors focused on personal reckonings. Their motto was, "Truth without permission." I submitted the story with trembling fingers using the pseudonym Wren Elwood. The email confirmation popped up almost instantly. "Thank you for your submission. Our editorial team will review within 48 hours. I closed the laptop and exhaled like I'd just confessed to something sacred. That evening, Dana and I sat on the porch with 2 glasses of red wine and a bowl of over-salted popcorn. "I sent something in," I said. "A piece about my family, about erasure." She didn't ask for details, just nodded. "Good. Tell the truth. Someone out there needs it." We sat in silence for a while, watching the fireflies blink over the grass like little pulsing lanterns. I thought about how long I'd waited to be seen, how much of my identity had been shaped by the people who refused to see me. That night, I dreamed of standing in front of an auditorium reading aloud. The seats were empty at first, but slowly figures filed in. Not my family, not anyone I recognized, just strangers. Listening. The next day, I received an email. Subject, your piece. Inheritance has been accepted. I blinked. Read it twice. Then 3 times. They wanted to publish it. They called it unflinching, lyrical, and needed, said it would run in their upcoming feature series on modern estrangement. I stared at the screen jaw, slack fingers hovering over the keyboard. I didn't know what I was feeling, pride, terror, relief, maybe all of it. But mostly I felt this surge of realness, like my pain had found a shape, a name. They offered a modest payment too, but what mattered more was the line at the end of the email. Your words will help someone feel less alone. I burst into tears, again. But this time, they felt different. Not the tears of someone breaking, but of someone breaking free. When Dana got home, I showed her the email. She hugged me so hard I nearly dropped the laptop. You're starting, she whispered. This is the beginning. That night, I started outlining a new essay, one not about loss, but about survival, the working title Reclaiming the Uninvited. The essay went live on a Thursday morning. By noon, it had over 8,000 reads. By Friday, nearly $30,000. By Sunday, it was picked up by a well-known culture podcast that quoted my final paragraph verbatim and asked, why do we silence the daughters who refuse to perform gratitude? And yet no one from my family said a word. Not Jordan, not Mom, not Dad, even though I knew they saw it. I'd noticed that Jordan followed the magazine on Instagram. She liked 3 other posts that weekend. None of them were mine. I wasn't tagged, of course it was anonymous, but the story was unmistakable. The details were too specific. The shape of the pain, too familiar. Anyone who knew me would know, which made the silence even louder. It was like they'd built a wall and I'd hurled a brick of truth straight through it, and still they stared at the hole and pretended the wind didn't bother them. I kept writing, not just for the magazine, for myself, for strangers, for anyone who needed to know that being forgotten didn't mean being unworthy. I started a Substack newsletter under the same pseudonym, Wren's Window. In 2 weeks, I had 1 to 400 subscribers, then 3,000. A woman from Oregon messaged to say the piece helped her finally walk away from a sister who manipulated her for decades. A college student from Montreal said she read it out loud to her therapist. And still, my phone stayed silent, except once. It buzzed with a photo from my family group chat, Jordan's new pool, captioned Summer Kickoff. In the background, my mother sipped rosé. My dad grilled something. There were matching monogram towels draped over the lounge chairs. I zoomed in, not even sure why. In the center of the photo was a framed print resting beside the outdoor bar. A quote, my quote, from the article. Family isn't who remembers your birthday. It's who remembers your worth. I froze. They had printed it, displayed it, and said nothing. Did they think I wouldn't notice? That I'd be flattered? I wanted to scream, to call and demand they acknowledge me. But I didn't. Instead, I took a screenshot, saved it in a folder I titled Proof. I went for a walk around Dana's neighborhood instead. The sun was setting, casting the street in orange and lavender streaks. Wind rustled the trees. Somewhere a kid laughed while jumping a sprinkler. I let the rage melt into something else, not forgiveness, not peace, but clarity. They didn't want me. They wanted the aura of me, the quotes, the words, the version of me that sounded profound but didn't ask to be invited. They wanted the ghost of me, not the living, breathing, complicated person. So I gave them nothing. I turned my attention back to the real things. My writing was getting noticed. A university press reached out asking if I'd consider expanding the essay into a book. A small grant became available for women writers tackling generational estrangement. Dana connected me to a literary agent who read my 3 submissions and said, "You've got a voice that slices like silk." I nodded, smiled, thanked her. But inside, I was still the girl who'd stood on a stage at 9 years old, scanning the audience for parents who never came. And that's the thing no one tells you about healing. It doesn't come with applause. It comes quietly in early mornings, open documents, quiet walks. It's not loud, but it's yours. It started with a missed call from an unknown number, then a text. Jordan, hey. Weird question. Do you have any connections at Seaglass Resort trying to get a comped stay for a brand collab? LMK. I stared at it for a full minute, unsure whether to laugh or throw my phone across the room. Seaglass Resort. The same resort from that family trip. The trip where they forgot, no refused to book me a room. I hadn't thought about the place in months, had buried it under layers of healing and work and soft domestic evenings on Dana's couch. But here it was again, clawing back into my life in the form of a heart emoji request. She knew. She had to. Only a few weeks earlier, I'd been contacted by Seaglass's PR agency. They'd read my anonymous essay and reached out, privately said they were developing a rebrand focused on inclusion and healing travel, wanted to collaborate, asked if I'd consider being a behind-the-scenes strategist for their digital content. I accepted quietly. Signed the contract, used the money to finally rent my own studio apartment. I never told anyone. And now Jordan, oblivious, self-appointed brand ambassador Jordan, wanted me to pull strings. I didn't reply. Not right away. But it didn't stop there. A week later, Mom emailed. Subject family thing, hi sweetheart, your cousin Nora is planning a little get-together in October. Thought it'd be nice to see everyone again. I know things were awkward last time, but time heals right. Also, Dad's had some knee trouble. He might need help with the bills. Just thought I'd mention it. Hope you're doing well. Love, Mom. There it was. The classic sandwich nostalgia, guilt, and vague affection all layered in between a slice of financial expectation. I read it again slower this time. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a subtle rewiring of the narrative like I was the one who had drifted, and they were now graciously offering me a route back in. Dana peeked over my shoulder. You okay? I shrugged. It's happening. She didn't ask what it meant, she just nodded. Later that day, my dad called. I let it ring out. Then he left a voicemail. Hey Ness, heard you're writing stuff. Real proud of you, kiddo. Also, your sister's friend said you might know someone at that hotel chain. Give me a ring when you get a sec. Real proud. That phrase lodged in my throat like dry bread. You're proud now after years of silence, after erasing me from dinner tables, vacation rosters, and memory. Now I was visible. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because I was no longer available for their version of me, the one who stayed quiet, who showed up uninvited, who accepted crumbs and called them dinner. I did something else instead. I forwarded Jordan's message to the Seaglass PR team. Attached was a short note. This is the woman who excluded me from the Coral Bay trip, the one your campaign was based on. She's now asking for access. I trust your judgment. An hour later, they replied, Thank you for flagging. We've declined her request. And just like that, the cycle was interrupted. Not with rage, not with revenge, just boundaries. Real ones, soft, firm, unshakable. The family reunion was held at a private beachfront estate 2 hours outside Charleston. Not a single person asked if I'd be attending, but the invite still found its way to my inbox. Dana raised an eyebrow when I showed her. You gonna go? I hesitated. I don't know, I said. It's not like anything I say will change how they see me. Dana sipped her tea. Maybe it's not about saying anything. I booked a flight. The estate was extravagant. Imported Italian stone around the pool servers in white linen, a grand floral arch framing the entryway. Jordan had organized it, of course. Her Instagram buzzed with curated candids and captions like, family is everything, as if those words weren't daggers when spoken from certain mouths. I arrived an hour late. No one was at the front entrance. The woman at the check-in table glanced at her iPad. Name Vanessa Walker. She squinted, scrolled, frowned. I don't see you listed. I smiled faintly. Of course you don't. It didn't matter. I stepped back, pulled out my phone, and opened a separate email, one marked Sea Glass Partnership Confidential. Within it was a code, a simple string of numbers and letters. The estate we were standing in wasn't just a family rental, it was owned in part by Sea Glass. And in a strange twist of timing, I had been given full back-end access that week. Not for power, just logistics, strategy, expansion. I walked to the side gate past the valet and entered through the employee corridor. The moment I stepped onto the main patio, the air changed. Conversations dimmed. My heels clicked softly on the stone as I passed tables of cousins and old neighbors and second aunts. Then came the moment. A staff member, tall, sharp-suited, clearly senior, stepped out of the side hallway holding a clipboard. He paused when he saw me. His eyes widened. He approached. "Miss Walker?" he said gently. "I apologize, but I cannot find your reservation." The exact sentence was spoken. I stood still, let it echo. The same words I had heard months ago in that cold hotel lobby when Jordan smirked and my father turned away. I heard murmurs behind me. Jordan stepped forward. "Oh, she wasn't invited. The staff member held up a hand. "No, I didn't mean as a guest." He turned to the crowd. "I meant, your suite was already open upstairs. We've arranged everything per your specifications. Silence, flat, heavy." Then he added deliberately, "You're listed under executive access, ma'am. Same as your last stay at Sea Glass Coral Bay." A gasp rippled from someone at the back. Jordan's face paled. "What? Do you mean executive?" I turned to her, calm, unwavering. "I consult for Sea Glass," I said. "You know, the resort you once told me I didn't belong in." Her mouth opened, closed. My mother dropped her wine glass. It didn't shatter, it just tilted, rolled onto the grass. I didn't elaborate, didn't boast. Instead, I walked toward the balcony, the same one where Jordan was now frozen. The servers parted for me like they already knew, because they did. Not as Jordan's sister, not as the quiet one, but as the woman who wrote the story that reshaped their brand. I took my seat at the head of the guest table. The violinist, yes, she was, backstruck a soft note, and I raised my glass to nothing, to no one, to myself, and sipped. The fallout was slow, deliciously quiet. I didn't post anything, didn't upload a single picture, but somehow word spread. A week after the reunion, a popular lifestyle influencer, one I'd never met, posted a TikTok, y'all. You remember that viral essay about the family who excluded their daughter from a vacation? I just found out she was at my cousin's wedding last weekend. And the woman slayed. Like, head of the table full access pass, everybody shook. The video hit 400,000 views in a day. A Reddit thread popped up dissecting the essay again, with users speculating who Ren Elwood really was. No one could confirm. I never claimed it. I didn't have to. But the pressure started to mount. Jordan messaged me twice the following week. "Jordan, can we talk?" Not about work, just us. Jordan. "If I messed up, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were involved with Sea Glass. That was huge." I didn't respond. Then came the real crack. A journalist published an exposé on toxic family dynamics in curated influencer culture, featuring screenshots of Jordan's old posts, cross-referenced with quotes from my original essay. She wasn't named directly, but anyone with eyes could connect the dots. Suddenly, brands started pulling away. She posted a tearful Instagram story, heavy filter lighting, too perfect, saying, "I've always supported women, especially my family. I would never intentionally exclude someone. The comments weren't kind. This you funny, your mom laughed when Vanessa got iced out at the dinner. You can't edit real life with Lightroom, girl." Then came the unfollow cascade. Her sponsorship with a wellness drink evaporated. A tech brand removed her from their campaign for alignment reasons. Even Greg's Sweet Oblivious shrimp cocktail, Greg unfollowed her. But the real twist, my father's company, a mid-tier construction firm, had been working on a pitch for Sea Glass to build their new eco-retreat cabins. I didn't say anything, didn't touch it, but the board did. When my name appeared as one of the consulting editors on Seaglass's ethics committee, the deal was politely pulled back for internal review. My father called. I didn't answer. He emailed. Subject, we need to talk. Message, Vanessa. I didn't know your work had come this far. I'm proud of you. I wish things had gone differently. Let's not let this get in the way of family. Dad. The words rang hollow, not because they weren't nice, but because they were 20 years late. The deal fell through. They'd invested a lot up front. My uncle, his business partner, was furious. I heard from a cousin that things got tense at the next family dinner. Someone brought up my name and my mother left the table. No one stood up. And for once, I wasn't there to clean up the mess. That's the beauty of truth. It doesn't need to scream. It just waits until silence becomes undeniable. I didn't watch Jordan's fall unfold in real time. I didn't need to. Instead, I watered the little rosemary plant on my windowsill and let the sunlight pour into my new studio, like it had been waiting all along. The apartment was nothing fancy. Exposed brick, creaky floorboards, a view of a brick wall on one side and a sliver of sky on the other. But it was mine. No one else's name was on the lease. No one else had paid for it. The couch was secondhand. The rug was a hand-me-down from Dana. My desk was an old oak table salvaged from a neighbor's moving sale, but it held my laptop, my notebooks, my voice. That was enough. Mornings were slow now. I brewed coffee in a French press and played jazz on a low speaker. Sometimes I danced barefoot in the kitchen while waiting for the kettle to boil. Not for anyone else, not for a post, just because. I wrote daily. Some days it was only a paragraph, others 10 pages. The book deal was moving forward slow, careful, and wholly on my terms. No one rushed me, no one interrupted, and no one looked over my shoulder asking if it was worth it. I no longer asked that question either. One Saturday afternoon, I returned from the farmer's market with a bag of peaches and a paperback of Adrienne Rich poems. As I turned the key to my door, a letter fell from the mail slot. No return address. I knew the handwriting. It was my mother's. I stood there for a long moment, the envelope in my hand, the hum of summer heat pressing against the back of my neck. I didn't open it, not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to. The version of me who once would have torn it open, hunting for apology acknowledgement, or even scraps of affection she didn't live here anymore. I tucked the letter in a drawer beneath some old receipts and closed it gently. Then I peeled a peach, ate it, standing at the sink, let the juice drip down my wrist and laughed when it tickled. Freedom, I realized, was quiet. It didn't announce itself in grand gestures. It showed up in the way I could finally breathe deep without wondering who was watching, in the way I no longer had to rehearse my worth in my head before entering a room, in the way I had stopped needing to be invited because I'd built a life where I belonged by default. Sometimes late at night, I still thought of that moment at the resort. The desk clerk's words, Jordan's frozen expression, the stunned hush of the crowd. But not because I wanted revenge, because that was the exact second I knew I was done trying to be chosen and started choosing myself. There's something I never told anyone. Not Dana, not the editor who accepted my first essay, not even the Seaglass PR director who once called me a force behind the curtain. The day I was denied that room when the desk clerk looked me dead in the eye and said, "I cannot find your reservation," I recorded it. Not out of strategy, out of instinct. It wasn't even a video, just a voice memo. I had been fiddling with my phone in my pocket, trying not to break down and hit the record button without meaning to. Later, alone in the suite, I almost deleted it. But something in me couldn't. There was power in hearing it again. The polished professional tone, the false sympathy, Jordan's voice in the background lilting with smug precision, the complete silence of my parents, the betrayal captured in real time. I listened to it once weeks later and realized something chilling. It wasn't the clerk's voice that hurt. It was mine. The way I said, "I guess I'll figure something out," soft-strained, desperate to not make things awkward. That single sentence said more than any essay ever could. I kept that audio, still have it, stored in a secure folder, not for evidence, not for revenge, for remembrance. A monument to the moment I stopped waiting for them to see me and started building a world that didn't require their eyes. I also never told anyone about the envelope I found a month after moving into my new apartment. It had been tucked inside an old journal from college when I'd boxed up and almost donated. The note inside was from my grandmother. It was dated the year before she died. Vanessa. If you're reading this, it means life hurt you in ways it never should have. I always saw you, even when others didn't. You carry a fire they don't know how to name. That's not your flaw. It's your gift. Keep it burning. Grandma Ruth. I pressed the letter to my chest and wept like something ancient had broken free. I had spent so long asking the wrong people to validate me, I hadn't realized someone already had. Silently, without fanfare. And maybe that's the quiet magic of being overlooked. It teaches you to build in the dark, to trust the glow in your own hands when no one else offers a light. Some stories don't end with applause. There's no parade when you stop begging to be loved. No dramatic swell of music when you choose yourself after years of being chosen last or not at all. Just the quiet, the kind that used to terrify me. But now, it holds me. I still think about them sometimes. The way my mother would gently correct me in front of others Vanessa's not the social one. The way my father said nothing when Jordan joked about how some people just aren't built for the spotlight. The way Jordan could steal the air in a room and leave none for anyone else. I used to think it was my fault for not learning to breathe faster. Now I know I was never meant to compete. I was meant to leave the room, build a new one, with better air, the kind that lets you breathe deep and full even if no one's watching, even if they still don't ask where you've gone. Because I'm not gone. I'm just no longer available to be minimized, not in their group chats, not in their family photos, not in the roles they assigned me before I ever had a voice. I'm not bitter. I'm busy, writing stories that matter, walking through farmers markets with ink on my fingers, laughing too loud at midnight movies, taking calls from people who say your words found me when no one else could. Maybe your story is quieter. Maybe you've been erased more subtly, left out of dinners talked over in meetings forgotten by the people who once said they'd always show up. But hear me. You are not invisible just because they refuse to look. You are not unworthy just because they can't pronounce your name when it's not convenient. You are not a backup singer in someone else's family song. You are your own voice. And whether they hear it or not, sing, write, live. Loud or soft, it's still valid. It's still yours. As for me, I don't need a seat at their table anymore. I built my own, and the view is better here. Now I leave you with this. Have you ever been erased so quietly you started to wonder if you were real? And if so, what did you do next? Because I chose to stay silent once, but never again.